Roll Tide, guys. Good to talk to you on this Thursday. Hey, guess what? Alabama nailed the transfer portal. They pick up their first guy in the portal. We're going to talk about the new tight end transferring in from West Virginia and his coach, or the guy that was his coach, and now the guy that will be his coach. We'll get into that on here as well. Will Bama nab the next great defensive lineman, or is he already on the team? We'll get into that and more, plus the NFL draft from Green Bay, Wisconsin tonight, right here on Cover Crimson. And we appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. Cover Crimson, $25 off the annual subscription. $75 gets you Clint Lamb 24/7. It's like having Clint in your house to talk Bama with you. Roll Tide. All right, Roll Tide, man. Jack Sammarco is the first guy that Bama picks up in the spring transfer portal. Kind of out of nowhere, right? We thought we were going to get the other tight end, Brody, and then end up with this guy. He's a Robbie Oots type dude.
Big guy, really big guy. Like, he was listed on West Virginia's roster last year as 6'5", 238. Watching him on tape, I was like, he just looks so much bigger than that. Well, come to find out, I think he played roughly around 250 pounds last year. Hayes Fawcett, who ended up breaking the news that he was going to be transferring to Bama, in his post, he listed him at 6'5", 260. So probably had talked to Samarco and gotten an updated weight. So really big frame, like good blocker, reliable hands, does a lot of the stuff from the passing game, that is like serviceable. Could be better as far as creating separation, which you don't really, he's not going to be one of those dynamic tight ends that does that consistently, but you would like to see a little bit more there, would like to see a little bit more as far as the route running, which would help in the separation and stuff. But, I think a lot of Alabama fans, it feels like that they were not disappointed in this addition, but the fact that it came out of nowhere, the fact that he is not really a known guy. Mick, this was a true freshman last year, and he really grabbed the attention of the previous West Virginia coaching staff and ended up playing close to 100 snaps. So about the same amount of snaps as Danny Lewis did for Alabama this past season for West Virginia, and they really liked his upside long term. They thought he was going to end up being a really big part of the offense, a much bigger part of the offense in 2025, and they end up losing him, and he was only a true freshman, so he's got 3 seasons of eligibility. So it's not like a Brody Dalton who's going into his final year of eligibility. This is a guy who is not even close to being a finished product, but what he's shown up to this point is very encouraging. And so, I don't know how the new coaching staff, Rich Rodriguez, going to West Virginia, I know at Jacksonville State, he started implementing more tight end stuff that was different than what we had seen kind of at West Virginia back in the day. So I don't know what his role would have been. I don't know how they viewed him, but he entered the transfer portal. Now he's at Alabama, and I think this is a very underrated get, relative to, what people were expecting from him.
Couple of things too. He fits the culture. Everything you read about him is that he's a good guy. He's smart, a great teammate, and that was something that Kalen DeBoer stated that he really looked at with guys that they bring in from the transfer portal, right? Having the right fit as far as personality goes, culture. And the other thing is that at the tight end spot, you got to have guys that can block. It's not all about catching the football. I know he caught one pass last year, but it doesn't matter. You're in a lot of packages where you need somebody to come in and block.
So, I saw somebody yesterday on Twitter, and they were like, I'm not expecting Alabama to have a Brock Bowers caliber tight end, but it would be so nice if they could get like a dynamic presence at that spot for the passing game. And I get that. I understand that. But you talk about Brock Bowers, you talk about what Georgia's been able to recruit at the tight end position, but look at what they have sacrificed as far as the wide receiver room, right? It's been pretty bad. They're doing whatever they can to try to fix it. And get it better, and who knows what's going to end up happening. We'll have to wait and see. We thought last year would be a little bit better than it was. So, it's like it's hard to have everything, to have the first round dynamic presence at tight end and having all these receivers all over the field. And if you had that player, that would be a player that you would need to feed quite a bit. But Alabama's got receivers that need to be fed, and not just the starting 3. They got to run probably 5-6 deep bare minimum. Could end up, due to injuries and things like that, could end up running 7 or 8 deep before it's all said and done. Those are the guys that you want to get the football to. That is what this Kalen DeBoer offense, this Ryan Grubb offense really wants to do. Now, granted, the tight end position is really important from a blocking standpoint,
Right.
and from the standpoint of creating, space, whether it be vertical space or horizontal space, and how they use them in the passing game to create opportunities for others. But, it's just, it's kind of unrealistic. And based off of not only what was available in the transfer portal, but also what Alabama's looking for, they're not looking to spend a ton of money. You don't need to go out there and get a starter. You think you've got both your Y and your H starters. You've kind of not made them promises, but they have these expectations that they're going to be given every opportunity. And despite the fact that Daniel Lewis was injured and Josh Cuevas got injured, this spring, that still remains the case. So what do? You go out there and do you think you're going to go sign a guy who is just an incredible player to agree to come be your tight end 3? Or you say, hey, Danny Lewis, we know we got you to come out of the transfer portal and give you money and all this stuff. Now we want you to kind of go back to being tight end 3 or tight end 4 like you were last year. That's just not realistic. So what do? You don't want to just sign bodies to sign bodies. You want to, if you have to turn to them, they can be, they can make an impact. They can be an effective, serviceable player at that spot. And like Brody Dalton, he could certainly be that. And I don't think Brody Dalton, we should completely rule him out. I think it's possible that you end up getting both, because Dalton's going to be a senior. He's only going to have 1 year of eligibility. And Sammarco is a guy who's going to have multiple years. Even if he ends up not being the main tight end or one of the main tight ends, he'll have opportunities down the road. But it's like, I think Sammarco is like the perfect guy that you want. He is a guy that if you had to turn to him and he had to play, because you have to start working into your depth, I don't think he'd be like a complete liability and he would be terrible. I think he can get the job done. And I think there's upside and growth opportunity with him, where it's like, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's the same thing, but it's kind of Miles Ketzelman-esque in the sense of when they signed him from the JUCO level, no star guy, no one knew who he was. Alabama was there viewing somebody else, and they just noticed him because he was a massive body, and he was kind of at the time, doing some stuff with the receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And, he didn't do much at Alabama, but he's gone to Tennessee, transferred there, and he's ended up being one of the better tight ends in the SEC. A very, very good blocker, one of the better blockers in the league, very timely pass catcher, had some really big time moments in the passing game for Tennessee last year. And so, is he an elite guy? Am I saying that this, Jack Samarco is going to end up, getting into that elite tier? No, not at all. But I do think that he can be Miles Ketzelman-esque, where it's like if you give him some time to develop and grow, I think he can end up really helping your offense and being a much better player than what you would think based off of the fact that no one really knows who he is. And with his frame and his size, I also wouldn't completely rule out. I'm not saying this is in the works and this is in the plans, but I think he could end up growing into an offensive tackle as well, who would be like a Lane Johnson, having a lot of athleticism at that position if that ended up happening down the road. So I trust the staff's evaluation on this. I think they've earned that right from us based off of what we've seen them do. I think it was a great pickup, Mick.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about his head coach, the one that he just left here in a second, but I want to remind you guys too, NFL draft coming up tonight. You got professional racing. We call it NASCAR. But there's more to it than that. What are the Indy cars? You could do those. You got golf. You got baseball. You got basketball. All that. Pearl River Resort at the Timeout Sports Lounge. It's the sports book there, just like in Vegas. I just got back from Vegas, hung out at some sports books. That one's better just because you don't have to pay for your seat. You got a huge bar. You got 20 TVs with everything on there. You can bet on all this stuff, whether it be national or international games. You get a little bit of help from the window if you need it. You also have those kiosk stations where you can do it yourself. That's Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 hours and change from Birmingham, and great place for bachelor parties, get away for the weekend. If you like golf, dancing rabbit. All right, Clint, how about Rich Rodriguez? The thing to me was when I was trying to figure out like why he would transfer, I'm like, well, maybe like it kind of made sense. I mean, first off, I remember Rich Rodriguez almost being Alabama's coach, and we wouldn't have had Nick Saban, and it wouldn't have worked out well. And then I think about Rich Rodriguez's career. I mean, he almost got West Virginia to the national championship game. He was at Jacksonville State, did an excellent job, got rehired by them. Can you go home again? And then for for this guy, I mean, he still runs that pure spread. You don't really have a whole lot of just blocking tight ends, right?
Well, I think, and granted, I'm not going to claim to know the ins and outs of Jacksonville State's offense, but I do think they really started to implement the tight ends more.
Okay.
He evolved quite a bit because you saw a lot of 10 personnel or 20 personnel with 2 running backs and 0 tight ends at West Virginia. Owen Schmidt was like a fullback that they would use. I mean, everybody I'm sure remembers him. He was the guy that would get his nose all bloodied up, and he was crazy, would headbutt his own helmet. Really fun dude to watch, to be honest with you. My kind of style of play. But, that was more so, I wouldn't say he was like a tight end, but he was more of like their blocker that they would use for a lot of that stuff. But I think he has evolved, but I haven't looked into it enough to know, okay, I don't know why Jack Sammarco ended up transferring. And a lot of people were like, well, has he even visited Alabama? Like, it seemed like it came out of nowhere. No one knew if he had visited. Well, I did see where he had visited back when he was going through the recruiting process, I think in 2023, because he was part of the 2024 class.
Wow.
He posted some pictures from there. And then it was reported by Bama Online that he was, in fact, on campus yesterday. So it was probably like a short notice thing, but he was already familiar with Tuscaloosa. I mean, this is an offense that's looking for tight ends. The brand, I think it just kind of worked out perfectly. And I think there's like a path for him to be, potentially be tight end 3, depending on what happens with Brody Dalton. And that could be a ship that sailed. I just think that there's room for both of them because of the short and long term of both players and kind of where they're at in their careers. But could be like a tight end 3, maybe a tight end 4 this season. But there's, kind of like Miles Ketzelman, like he was at Alabama. He ended up transferring before he had that opportunity to kind of climb.
Right.
But, I do think he could end up being a pretty good tight end. Is he going to be like a guy who's going to be a first-round draft pick or something? No, but I think at a certain point he can be every bit of what CJ Dupree gave you, every bit, and potentially with a little bit more upside, in my opinion. So, once again, I think it was a good get. I think it really helps the tight end room's depth, and it's the perfect combination of a guy who's still got a lot of upside, a lot of growth potential because he's extremely young, still, getting the nuances of playing that position, which is a tough position to transition, whether it be from high school to the college or college to the NFL, still doing all that stuff. And yet, I think he can help you right now to an extent if you had to have him, but also there's a lot of growth potential as well.
Really interesting. When these kind of things happen and you're like, what is this? What does this mean to the room? And we also thought that they were going to wait on making these moves until the window closed. But I guess with this, it's like you really don't have a blocking tight end like this guy. And if you're in that room, you're not going, well, you know what? We don't need another guy that can block. I mean, it feels like he's kind of like an extra offensive lineman.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I like about him. Like, I'm not saying he's Michael Williams from back in the day, but when Michael Williams got to the NFL, he kind of flirted with both. He did some tight end, but I think I knew the New England Patriots and the Detroit Lions are the 2 main ones. I know one of them, I think it was the Patriots, really trot him out at offensive tackle when he got some opportunities there. I think Sammarco has that potential where he could end up being a guy who eventually makes the move. But, I think with him, like, they already made it known when they were pursuing Brody Dalton that tight end was a position that they wanted. And the fact that they could potentially take both of these 2 guys, it's like you got scholarships to spare and you can sell the rest of your tight end room on the fact of, like, there was one healthy guy this spring, one. And we cannot have that come the fall. These guys, Danny Lewis is not a guy who's coming in to take your job. Josh Cuevas isn't a guy who's coming in to take your job. These are guys to come in and give us more bodies there, make sure this doesn't happen again in the fall. Like, that's a pretty easy selling point when you've literally just witnessed it as a player. So that's why I think that one specific position was like Alabama was not immediately. It took a few days, but they were connected to a tight end. It's the only player or position that they've been connected to somebody in the transfer portal up to this point. I think it's post tomorrow when the window closes that you might start seeing, okay, where else can we fill in some gaps and who's available? And you might start seeing some more stuff, but there's no rush here for them, because if they went into next season with just this roster, they would be fine with that. So anything that they add at this point, it's like, it's just gonna, I would say help as far as depth and kind of filling out practice squads and things like that moving forward.
Really interesting. Guys, we're brought to you by mybookie.ag, and we got a great deal for you. We love to throw this out there. Our code is Crimson, so take advantage of it and take advantage of this deal. 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip when using the code Crimson at mybookie.ag. Every time I see the casino chip, I think of the late, great Big Sexy Elmo telling me that he was playing roulette on there. and he got a lot of money built up at one point, and I said, cash out, Elmo. Just run. So he took the money that he put in, cashed out, and just kept playing. So, my advice, how far my advice goes.
Question on that real quick. 21.5 is the over-under for Shedeur Sanders. Now, that's a very specific place because the Pittsburgh Steelers have been connected to him. They've also been connected to Jalen Milroe, but they pick at number 21. So, essentially, what Vegas is asking is, if you take the over, you think Pittsburgh's passing on him. And if Pittsburgh passes on him, I don't know that he goes in the first round. Possible that he goes to the Rams. Possible that, like, the Giants or the Browns trade up to the back half of the first to get him. But I think it's more than likely he goes like 33 or 34 bare minimum to one of those, the Browns or the Giants. Or if you take the under, you say, well, I think his floor is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. And there are a lot of people today who are making that connection and saying they do feel like he's going to fall, but they feel like he's not going to fall past Pittsburgh. Just right now, I'm sure you could go to mybookie.ag and throw a bet on this. What would be your lean right now, Mick?
Oh, man, I think somebody's going to take a chance on him.
You think, and so you would take the under on the 21?
Yeah, I would probably go Sanders first over Milroe, and partly just because of his genetics. I mean, Deion Sanders, best player ever. His dad coached him. He had a ton of success with no offensive line at all 2 years ago. I mean, I don't watch enough Colorado games to know, but I've watched enough Alabama games to know that Milroe has some shortcomings, and he's also got some amazing ability. Are you surprised that guys are coming out now and saying that the whole team would have transferred had he stayed? Did you hear this?
I did hear it. It's a weird look. Here's the thing. We've heard this too. I mean, but the problem is like, you don't want to just go bash a guy and report this kind of stuff, right, especially like while he's at Alabama, and create all these problems when it's like, I mean, that's something that, like, you gotta, like, I've always been the type where if I'm getting information like that, I'm not running and saying that stuff until I have 100% certainty that it's true, because it would be very unfortunate if it wasn't. Now, granted, I think I have a little bit more loyalty to Alabama than, a lot of these guys out here who are reporting this news right now. They're national NFL guys, and they're talking to people within the program. You have no idea where it is coming from. But I will say there were some people that weren't the biggest Jalen Milroe fans in that building. And so there also could be some bias. It's kind of conflicting, because you hear in the USF game that everybody was willing to quit because he wasn't the starter. And then here you are saying, okay, but then, if he would have come back to Alabama for another season, everybody was transferring. That could be, they specifically mentioned skill player guys. So skill players relative to, if Tyler Booker was a big fan, if Terrion Arnold on defense was a big fan, and they were the ones that were pushing, or wanting, I guess both of those two things could be true.
Right.
There was clear frustration by the skill players. Ron Williams, was pretty noticeably frustrated in the Michigan game, in the bowl game. But I don't want to get too much into that, because I don't know how true or not true it is. It also could be something where it's like you start leaking this kind of stuff and hoping, hey, I would love to get Jalen Milroe. And I love to get him later than he's currently projected to go. So let me leak something real quick and say that, this is what was going on, just so I can maybe make that. So you get these games that are being played, is my point.
Some politics.
Yeah. And now here's the thing. I've heard Shedeur Sanders connected to Pittsburgh. I've also heard that Jalen Milroe is the guy that they want, but they would rather trade back to where they can get some picks because they don't have a second round pick and still because they feel like they can move back and still get him. Here's the thing, though. If you're the Steelers, you cannot move to the second round. And the reason that you can't is the Cleveland Browns are picking at number 33. So they have the first pick in the second round. They're a division rival. And with the Tommy Reese connection, especially, I'm not saying they would take Jalen Milroe at 33, but if you're Pittsburgh, you don't know. So if you move like with the Giants back from 21 to 34, now you're sitting behind a division rival. And if that's the guy that you really wanted, you're not going to risk him not only not going to you, but going to a division rival, because if he is who you thought he was and he turns into a superstar, that is a terrible, terrible look. So I think at bare minimum, the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they drop back, would be at the back half of the first round. And that way they could ensure that they get Jalen Milroe. Also hearing that the New York Giants really want Jackson Dart, and they're willing to move into the back into the back half of the first to get him. So it is also a possibility, and I want to put this out there, that the only two quarterbacks that go in the first round tonight are Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, and both Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Milroe fall to the second round. But I think it's going to be – I would almost guarantee one of those two is going to fall. But, we'll have to wait and see. We're going to be talking about landing spots here in just a few minutes, but I at least wanted to kind of touch on that because – the 21.5 for Shedeur I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's hold this conversation and remind everyone that tonight during the draft, Clint will be on covercrimson.com, and you guys can as well talk about the draft as it happens live. $25 off the annual right now if you join us. $75 for the entire year. That's less than a cup of coffee a day. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Remember that commercial, though?
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Anyway, we appreciate you guys for hanging out with us here on Cover Crimson. Like, subscribe, get in the comment section as we talk about the NFL draft and Roll Tide. All right, I'm going to skip the next great DL, and we're just going to keep talking NFL draft. So the two guys that we feel like are going to be first-round picks are Booker and Campbell. Where do you think they're going to end up?
I think for Campbell's probably the one that's going to go first. Now here, the shoulder injury is somewhat of a concern. Yesterday it did come out after it started. There were reports about his shoulder being a concern and him potentially falling to the back half of the first, maybe even out of the first. But then another report surfaced yesterday saying that he was expected to be back and ready for training camp. So I think that kind of, that certainly helps. Now, where he ends up going, I think it could be a wide range, wider than any of the other Alabama players. I think with Jalen Milroe, you got like these specific 5-6 teams that you're looking at. I think with Tyler Booker, because he's so scheme specific, same thing. But with Jihaad Campbell, he could go as high as like Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys at 12. He can go to Indianapolis at 14, the Atlanta Falcons at 15, Cincinnati Bengals at 17 have been connected to him. My personal favorite, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19, because they have a problem as far as their edge rushers. They signed Hassan Reddick. They got Chris Braswell, who they took in the second round last year. Not really sure what he's going to do in year 2, but they really need help at off-ball linebacker. Like Levante David's getting older. Servassier Dennis is a guy that they are saying is probably going to be one of their off-ball linebackers. But what I see when I look at Jihaad Campbell, and the reason I like that connection, is not only do I think he could be another complementary pass rushing piece that you use situationally out on the edge, but I also think he's got a chance to come in and at the bare minimum contribute, be a rotational piece at off-ball linebacker if you roll with David and Dennis. But I also and they also signed Anthony Walker in free agency, so that's a veteran presence they have there. But I think that Jihaad could end up being a starter, and with the kind of the way that they play defense, a versatile chess piece like Jihaad Campbell could end up being great. But you also have like the Baltimore Ravens could take him. Philadelphia, a lot of people say if he falls to the back half, like that's their typical strategy, it feels like in recent years, is just like, hey, who's the best Alabama or Georgia player that's fallen to us, to our pick, who is being, was projected to go a lot higher? We'll just take them and we'll get a stud. And it's worked out for him. So Jihaad Campbell could also go there. Pretty wide range of possibilities. For a guy like Tyler Booker, I really have 4 teams. There's a run from number 25 to number 28 where you've got the Houston Texans, the Los Angeles Rams, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Detroit Lions. I think schematically he fits all 4. I think there's a need by all 4 of those teams. Don't know where he's going to go as far as specifically there, but I would say that's probably the sweet spot for him. He could probably go a little bit earlier, maybe the Minnesota Vikings. Might go a little bit after that. Could fall to the second round as well. But I would say probably that 4-pick run, if I had to guess right now and I was a betting man, I would say that's going to be the sweet spot for him. But here's the question I have for you, Mick. Someone on the message board yesterday, and I think it was actually Stacy, because he always is creating great topics of conversation. They asked 1.5 over under for number of Alabama players taken in the first round. Are you taking the over there, or are you taking the under?
I'm taking the over. I think Campbell and Booker are both going to get drafted in the first round. Every mock draft I've looked at, they always seem to be together, like 14, 15 or 17, 18. Like, it's weird how they're always. And then honestly, like, don't be surprised if Milroe doesn't go in the first round. It could happen. So you could get 3 in there. Or maybe you just get 2, but Booker's going in the first round.
And that's so the 3 players that you're looking at, which you just mentioned, Jihaad Campbell's like shoulder injury makes it a possibility that he falls out. Booker, with the lack of the 10-yard split concerns, the athleticism as far as pulling, being very scheme specific, some people think it's possible he ends up falling out. Jalen Milroe is a guy who, I've said probably going to end up going on day 2, possible day 1, but like he's as far from a certainty. So I understand why 1.5 would be the number there. 2.5 would be, I would say, it's a pretty easy under, because there's so many possibilities for one of those 3 guys falling out. But with it being just 1.5, it's like I think someone's going to pull the trigger on Jihaad Campbell, because I think he's one of the top, 10 to 15 players in this draft. Tyler Booker's a guy who I just think from a leadership standpoint, the fact that he is a mauler, I think he's an immediate plug and play starter at guard, either guard spot. I think he's probably going to go towards the back half. And if one of those 2 guys falls out for whatever reason, you're not completely screwed. You still got the possibility, which is a real possibility, of Jalen Milroe sneaking in there in the first round. So I went over as well, but I just thought that was a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah, that is. Who knows how it's going to turn out. But it's going to be fun watching tonight. You guys like golf? Hey, Dancing Rabbits got you covered over at Pearl River Resort, the Azaleas, the Oaks, 2 amazing golf courses, Philip M. Steakhouse, the Chowda, and the Steaks, and the Experience, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. Make sure that you get over there. All right, next big defensive lineman, next star, the next great guy. Is he coming out of the portal, or do we have him on campus already?
So this is, and I should have put this for you, but this is actually a mailbag question from Keith Lusko. Hope I pronounced your last name right. If I didn't, just know I'm terrible with it. I can't even say my own last name half the time. But his question was, Clint, you may have discussed this, but who is currently on the roster that you see has the potential to be the next great defensive lineman? The way that I'll answer this, Mick, because I also want kind of your opinion. Are we including Bandits with that, or are you talking about pure like interior defensive linemen?
Bandits, throw them in there.
Yeah. Okay. So LT Overton's like the easiest bet here, and I think very disruptive player, needs to do a better job of finishing. We're actually having this discussion a lot right now with Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Is he going to go in the first round? How high? The athletic traits are off the charts, way beyond LT Overton. Just going to go ahead and put that out there, but just the lack of production. And that's something that LT Overton is going, if he has this problem again next year, he's going to be having these same talks about him. And I think that he doesn't have the athletic profile, or will have the athletic profile, to compensate where he would be a first round pick. So he's got to get that production, in my opinion. But he is easily the best bet for Alabama. James Smith is the other one that I would probably say is like, okay, he's a former 5-star, great run defender, has plenty of really reliable traits as far as interior pass rusher, can be a real disruptor, can move him around a little bit. You can play him, it's like a 3-4 defensive end. You can play him as a 3-tech over the guard. You can play him as a 0 or a 1. Very versatile in how you can use him. And he's just, he's got a great motor. So hoping he can get healthy this year, or, from the spring, and end up making a huge impact. The other one, though, that I would say is Jeremiah Beeman, just because we've been hearing great things about him. I personally would lean a lot more towards James Smith and LT Overton, but Beeman is a guy who is a former top 100 talent, has gained a lot of mass and size. He's doing really good things. He's kind of on the right trajectory as far as cracking the rotation. Not saying he's going to be a superstar this year, but you talk about the potential to be the next great Alabama defensive lineman. Still would put him third, but I like him as well. And then, we'll just have to wait and see what we get from some of these other guys. But those would be my 3 top choices. Would there be anybody else that you would throw in there, Mick, or you kind of?
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, I would have said all 3 guys. It would be great though if somebody else came out of nowhere. I just don't think that'll happen.
A lot of great defensive linemen, by the way. So this is not to say like that's your only 3 good guys. I think they got so many good players. But if you're talking about that Quinnen Williams, Marcel Darius, Jonathan Allen, Ron Payne, Ashawn Robinson, that type of player, I think those are your 3 best bets. But that doesn't mean Tim Keenan's not an excellent player. I think Edric Hill is going to contribute. Kelby Collins, Jordan Renaud, Stephen Momoa could end up being a guy down the road. Keon Keeley. It's just right now, I would say if I had to pick the next great, maybe potential first-round defensive lineman for Alabama, who's going to be that guy, I would probably say one of those 3.
Yeah. Everybody wants it to be Keon Keeley.
Understandable. You got the right stuff, man. Just from a commitment standpoint, very physically talented. Would love to see him succeed. But, yeah, I don't know necessarily that it'll be him. But I will say this. He's closer now to that being him than he was a year ago and the year before that. So he's moving in the right direction. And that's at this point, that's all you can really ask.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, guys, mybookie.ag, promo code Crimson. As you watch the draft tonight, check it out. Sit back on your couch. You don't have to go anywhere. And, and have a little bit of fun there. Put some pizza money on it. Great to have all you guys here hanging out with us on the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. I look at it every day and I'm like, hey, you know what? You guys got our backs, man. I mean, things are growing. It's a lot of momentum and a lot of fun. We're having a great time. So we'll see if we can get Jake Coker on for an elephant in the room. I will be at the Mullet Toss, officially at the Mullet Toss Friday.
How far are you throwing that mullet, Mick?
I don't know. I'd like to break 130 because I'm in the 126 or something like that last year. So I'd like to get it over 130.
I have no idea if that's good or not.
It is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I came in third one year. When the last year I wasn't in the, and I hate to say this, but it's called the celebrity section or whatever, but I'm not a celebrity, but I mean, I'm in that group now. So we don't really keep track anymore. I just throw against Coker and other people like that, which I don't want to have to throw. If he shanks one, I'm going to run up there and throw one.
Hey,
love to beat him. I don't think he will.
Your new nickname is Mick, Tosser of Mullets. That's sticking.
You fold the fish and you throw it like this. You got to get up there, and then you see him throw it. He's just like, woof, and it's like, woof.
Oh, so Coker's really good at it?
Yeah, he hadn't even done. I think this year I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't throw it 160, something like that. It's a different throw than the rest of us.
I mean, I would say from a former quarterback, even though I'm sure the throwing motion is quite different. Normally athletes are athletes, and he was an underrated athlete at Alabama for sure.
Yeah, national champion, but also a great guy and someone that'll be down there as well on Saturday. So we'll be there in the morning. But anyway, and then you can watch us on their YouTube channel. So think about that. Oh yeah. The Bama, the Florida Bama YouTube channel, Friday and Saturday.
I'm gonna have the draft going on one, and I'm gonna have the mullet toss on the other.
It's so funny. I think of all the events that I do every year, this is definitely my favorite. I mean, I just love it. That's seeing all the people in their outfits and everything.
I'm gonna make a commitment right now. I will be down there next year.
Come on.
I'm chumming. So,
come on. Guys, the last thing I want to tell you is Clint, you can always catch him on Cover Crimson. Stacy, the rest of our crew, covercrimson.com, $25 off the annual subscription. And we appreciate you guys for being a part of what we do. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Great job, Clint, and roll Tide, everybody.
Escape to Pearl River Resort.